Now, one of the first questions you're going to have to answer in small group ministry is what we call what's the end in mind, or what's the unit of one. You know, one of the things that sometimes churches fail to do is they fail to be scalable. And a lot of times in manufacturing, once you know the unit of one, you can replicate it, hundreds and thousands of times. And the same way in the church, you're trying to figure out, what am I trying to produce? What's the end in mind? I always have pastors call me up and they'll say, hey, I want to do small groups. And I'll say, hey, I love your question, but let me ask you a question. What are you trying to produce? If I have the perfect disciple sitting next to me in your church, what are they oozing? What are they producing? And that's your end in mind. Because what you want to do is think through, if I've got that disciple next to me, what are they emulating? Now for Saddleback, we'll have the cute slogans that will say, we want people to balance the Great Commission and the Great Commandment in their heart. And then, that's great, but nobody knows what that means other than everyone who's memorized it. But what we want to be able to do is, unpack that a little bit. So it's not only good to know the slogans for the end in mind, and many churches have that, but you want to start thinking through, can it be articulated, and do you have the tools, the tips, the strategy, the video curriculum that will help you get that done in your church? Now at Saddleback, our end in mind, like I said, is someone who balances the Great Commission and the Great Commandment in their heart. Rick coined this as the purpose-driven life. He actually wrote a book on it, kind of helped our church out a whole lot. But what you want to be able to do is you want to start looking through in saying, for us, where we're going, just let me personalize it for Steve Gladen. Where is Steve Gladen in the area of fellowship with God, my wife Lisa, my two kids Erica and Ethan, and with my small group? Where am I at authentically with them? And how deep is my fellowship with them? In the area of discipleship, what's my spiritual next step? I don't care how many degrees you have after your name. I don't care the pomp and circumstance you have before your name. Everybody on this planet has a spiritual next step. What are you working on in the next 30 days? In the area of ministry, what's my spiritual gift? And am I using it to the best of my ability of what God has put me on this planet to do? In the area of evangelism, who am I bringing to heaven? I mean, it's pretty simple and clear, but you got to understand that, what's important about that question is being able to understand it from the context of 1 Corinthians chapter 3, where evangelism just isn't somebody coming to know Christ, but it's, Paul say, some plant, some water, but it's the Lord who brings in the harvest. And so you don't want to, get people thinking, is evangelism just, winning people to Christ? No, it's planting and watering, Scripture says. And then in the area of worship, how am I worshiping or connecting vertically with God? Think of Romans 12:1. What's the living sacrifice that's on that altar? When do I understand that when God's holding the knife, that he's not an assassin, but he's a surgeon taking out the crud that I have? When you understand that end in mind, that is the tip of the spear. That is the most critical part of the equation for you to do small groups. So before you watch any more videos, before you dive deep into, the 30, 40, 50, 60 videos that we have for you and the tools that we have for you, understand this. If you don't know what your end in mind is, you're going to be wandering in the desert for 40 years. So pause this tape and ask yourself, do I know the end in mind? If you don't, start to get with your leadership and say, what is our end in mind? Not just the cute slogan that our church says. What are we trying to produce and make a disciple?